It looks like a Porsche Cayman, costs about the same, it has 50 less horsepower, but it is also over 200 kilograms lighter. This is Alpine A110.
Younger viewers may not remember the Alpine brand as it was axed back in 1995. However, those who remember it probably know the original A110 and its rally history.
And you probably remember William Woolard doing just this. Now, today I'm in the south of Poland, where annual rally events take place. The roads should be challenging enough, so let's put the new Alpine through its paces.
Alpine history dates back to 1950s, when a mechanic and racing driver, Jean Redele, started modifying Renault 4CVs. Later, he used Renault R8 platform, which was the basis for the original A110, a sports coupe, which did quite well in rallies in the 1970s.
The original Alpine A110 was powered by small tuned engines. The cars were light and nimble, just like the modern one, which, depending on the trim, weighs around 1100 kilograms.
These bucket seats weigh just 13 kilograms each. The suitcase which you take for vacation weighs more. Chassis and platform are bespoke aluminium constructions. The undercarriage is completely flat. Together with slim body, this gives good aerodynamic effects. The original car had the engine in the rear, but the new Alpine has a centrally mounted engine, just like in Porsche 718. Today, basic Cayman has a 2-liter 300 horsepower engine. Alpine is powered by the new 1.8 TCE engine, producing 252 horsepower. It's a down-tuned version of the engine used in the new Renault Megane RS.
But because Alpine is very light, it accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 4.5 seconds, and from 80 to 120 in 2.6. That's actually faster than an ordinary Cayman and fractions of a second slower than Cayman S.
Instead of complicated adaptive suspension, Alpine has normal shock absorbers and a double wishbone setup. It's somewhat tricky because of limited space, but it gives the car better handling.
Alpine chassis is stiff, but the car is not harsh. This means you can drive it in relative comfort on a bumpy road, but at the same time, you have a great feel of what's going on with the car and with the chassis in the corners as the suspension gradually gives in, letting you feel the limits of grip. Steering is direct, fast, and not over-assisted, but in tight corners, there is a slight problem here because of this joystick, which is from Renault parts bin, and because of this joystick, this controller for the infotainment and stuff, the paddles are too short. They should be longer and therefore easier to reach even as you're turning.
More about Renault parts later, and now let's talk about the gearbox. Alpine is available only with a 7-speed double-clutch automatic transmission. Apparently not enough prospective clients were interested in a manual to make it a business case. Alpine also claims, although manual gearbox alone is lighter than the automatic, together with all additional parts the manual setup is in fact heavier. In normal mode, the gearbox is slightly sluggish in my opinion, especially when driving on the motorway. The gearbox takes its time before a downshift. However, it's fast in manual mode, and when the car is in sport or track mode, this is where the fun begins.
Each shift evokes pops and bangs from the exhaust, and there's a mechanical kick so powerful You can feel it under the seat. Mazda can talk about rider and horse being one, but driving an MX-5 compared to driving an Alpine is like posting in trot versus full-on gallop.
The sound? Judge for yourself. Along the ad, once you're cruising at a constant speed, it's relatively quiet inside. Brakes are effective, just remember you're probably already going too fast. I was curious about fuel economy. During filming, I did hammer the car considerably, but fuel consumption never exceeded 10 liters per 100 kilometers, or never went below 24 mpg.
Visibility is one of Alpine's weaknesses. Due to the flat shape, visibility in the front is obstructed not only by the A-pillars but also by the rear view mirror. Fortunately, wing mirrors are quite low and at least they don't obstruct the view. Now, the view over the shoulders, left or right, is just terrible, so if there is a tricky crossing, you better approach it at an angle so that you can actually use the side windows rather than having to look in the back. And visibility in the rear, yeah, what visibility?
This test car is the sold-out limited Premier edition. Ordinary people can now order Pure or Legend spec for 55 or 60,000 euro. Options for the Pure spec pretty much cover the difference between the two versions, so I'd go for Pure and choose options I want.
Like fully adjustable seats, these standard bucket seats only go back and forth. Height adjustment requires unscrewing the seat. This is the middle of the three positions, and even I have very little headroom. Backrest is also too tilted for me, especially with limited reach adjustment of the steering column. And in this position of the seat and of the steering column, getting out and in is a bit of a hassle because the sill is quite high and there is very little room under the steering wheel.
Pedals and footrest are at a strange angle, and after a few hours of driving, my feet hurt. Also, central AC vent is non-adjustable and cold air was blowing on my knee. There is no place to put your sunglasses as the cubby under the center console is too shallow. Items may fall out in the corners and jam the pedals. There is no storage, but there is a place for a key card, which is also good for your smartphone. But better get a suction mount, as sat-nav sucks anyway. And you can't input destination while driving. Other stuff on the display includes temperature and pressure of components and liquids, should you drive your Alpine hard on the track.
I like there are bits of Alcantara on the steering wheel. It prevents hands from slipping, especially when you're driving sporty on the track. Now, the thing is, Alcantara should either cover the entire steering wheel or at least the places where you hold it, like the 10-2 position. So why did Alpine cover the top and the bottom instead? That's beyond me.
Bits from Renault parts bin include, among others, cruise control, 5 buttons in 3 places, and the cup holder between the seats is good enough for some change because your drink will fall under the seat. Shame there is no parcel shelf behind the seats, but at least there are 2 boots, like in the Cayman. Maybe not as big, but good enough for a couple of weekend bags, 100 liters in the front and 96 liters in the back. Access to the engine bay is possible after unscrewing a couple of bolts inside the boot. Like I said earlier, Alpine A110 was designed with lightness in mind, so the interior is not as luxurious as in a Porsche. There are also not as many options. However, Alpine A110 prices end where Porsche Cayman starts. A couple of options and your Cayman costs well over 60 grand, and Cayman S is in a different price range altogether.
Alpine A110 is not an ideal car, but it holds its own on the road, it has rally pedigree, and because of the Dieppe factory output, it is likely to remain an exclusive model. Anyone can go into a showroom and buy a Porsche, right? Now, if you want to see more reviews of not-so-ordinary cars, help me on Patreon or PayPal, links in the description below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, and of course drop me a comment. What's your favorite sports car? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.